event of reports of falsification documents of an airline employee, manager, pilot, etc., and how it affects security. All right, so let's check this out. Right, so there was this guy. His name was Tyron Alexander, and the story goes he basically got over 120 free flights by pretending to be a flight attendant and pretending to be flight crew. And so how he did it, he basically made a fake badge and said that he worked for a bunch of airlines. Honestly, it's kind of wild. This went on for a year before anyone caught him, but eventually the airlines noticed something was off and he got busted, just according to USA Today. Right. So, security impact. So the crazy part is that this fake ID. Oh, sorry, somebody came into the room. Sorry. So here's the crazy part. With just this fake ID, this dude was, walking straight into a secure airport, and it really makes you wonder how many other people could do the same. You know, uh, and according to the textbook, this kind of insider stuff is, one of the scarier threats in aviation. I can kind of relate to this because, me myself, I'm airport personnel at Dallas Love Field, and I'm like, you know, I if something goes wrong or something goes wrong with my psyche for some reason, if I go crazy, you know, something bad could potentially happen. I could be a security risk. It's one of those dark thoughts that I have, and so insider threats are very serious, right? Uh, and it's not just about sneaking in for free flights and all that. Something much worse can happen if something slips through the gaps. So the regulatory response to this was, after this happened, airports really just tightened up on ID checks. Just so they started using more thorough background screenings, and uh, they're quick to get someone's credentials if they found a red flag. They'll get randoms or something. But if they see something, they're quick on it. TSA got pretty strict about making sure people are who they say they are, and it's like if you can't prove it, you're out. If you can't prove who you are, you're not in there. Even if you know you have an ID that has your picture on it and it says your name, but it has to be authentic. And so legal penalties and the Tyron guy, or forgot his name. Yeah, the Tyron Alexander guy. You know, he got caught, right, and he's looking at a good amount of jail time. Decades worth of jail time. And the legal system really doesn't play around with this kind of stuff. This is wire fraud, ID fraud, all that kind of stuff. And for pilots or mechanics, one dumb move and with forgery like pencil whipping or anything, that's a national security risk. And so you can kiss your license goodbye after that. For example, me, I'm a pilot, and so I don't dare pencil whip. You know, and there may be some clerical errors here and there, but nothing. I'm not like adding a whole 2 extra hours to my flight, which is just insane. You know, preventative measures. Now, because of cases like this, airlines and airports are doing things like running regular audits, using biometric checks. Which, to be honest, I'm going to be writing an essay on this semester. The biometric checks are quite scary. Fingerprint scans, face scans, which, gosh, facial recognition, right? Talk about privacy. They're also hammering security awareness into everyone, just to spot anything that feels kind of sketchy or off. It's all about putting in those layers. It's all about implementing every security measures that just kind of Don't let anything see through the gaps, and don't let any bad actors through the holes. Now, the ethical and safety issues that this has, stuff like this kind of destroys trust. You've got, you have honest culture in aviation. It's kind of like it's kind of like an honor system whenever especially when you're uh, uh, logging time or kind of making legal documents, right? Uh, and so this really high stakes game kind of breeds this honesty, right? Because the honor system only upheld because of the ramifications that could come about if you're caught. So they're pushing ethics training, encouraging people to speak up if anything feels wrong. If you see somebody pencil whipping or forging anything, you need to tell them, look, this is a national security issue. You can't be doing that. The same way we bred a safety culture in aviation, there has to be some sort of, uh, uh, you know, honesty, upholding of honesty and integrity within our society, our aviation industry. Because if no one reports these problems, they just get buried, and that's what's really dangerous.